Kale the Quick here for an episode of Game Mechanics Engineering. In this video, we'll be talking about the types of games that really made me a gamer, RTS, or real-time strategy. Real-time strategy games could be hard to pin down. Pretty much any real-time game that involves thinking ahead is technically real-time strategy, but thanks to some pretty strong beginnings, the genre is pretty well defined. You have units you order about to collect resources and engage in other units, like being a commander in an army or a frontier town. Let's take a look at one aspect in particular: resources. Resources add strategic depth to what would otherwise just be a purely tactical game. While it's tough to draw a line between a tactics game and a strategy game, I would say that the addition of resources and non-combat units or buildings generally moves the game towards strategy, as the scope of the game encompasses more than direct engagement with the enemy, or tactics. The addition of resources and their use makes the player decision of where, when, or why to attack far more important. Let's consider some of the traits that make up different resources. A resource could be collectible or capturable. Some resources need to be picked up and returned to a collection point for use, like lumber or gold in Warcraft, or resource units in Homeworld. Others do not need to be returned to a base, but rather are captured, like listening posts or relics in Dawn of War. They could also be stockpilable or singular. Some are collected and add up to a total, with differing amounts being required, like gold, lumber, Vespian gas, pretty much all the normal resources we know, while others you either have them or you don't, usually functioning as a prerequisite for advanced units, like relics in Dawn of War, or sometimes you build them yourself, like how the lumber mill in Warcraft 2 is needed to construct ranged units, even though it doesn't construct the unit itself. Or it could be generated forever or finite. Gold mines collapse, forests are destroyed. The availability of a resource determines how it will fit into the game. Some resources are generated forever, like credits in Sins of a Solar Empire, or Nova crystals from a holocron in Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds. The harvestable resources could exist on the map as either a node, a single place you gather them from, or a field that is slowly cleared as you go through it. Gold mines or listening posts would be a node, while a bunch of trees would comprise a field that could be cleared. That actually allows them to interestingly affect gameplay. A wall of trees could hold some enemies at bay or hide another mine until it's cleared. And finally, probably one of the largest differences, how a resource is placed around a map or its abundance heavily affects how the game is played. Putting a huge stockpile in the middle of the map would create a far different experience than small, scattered clumps around the map. So now that we have some idea on how these can be different, let's do a bit of a thought experiment. Let's imagine an RTS, a simple one with a base and some units, and a perfectly balanced foe to oppose. To make another unit, you go to your base and it takes 10 seconds to build. Without resources, it would be all about finding and destroying the enemy. Tactics. But if we just add in a Dogecoin mine that the units can use and require some coin to build our units, we have introduced quite the upset. Now instead of search and destroy, the player's attention needs to be diverted from the enemy and combat and reallocated to harvesting. He needs to decide how much attention goes where and where his units go. It's practically a whole new genre. If the mine were to run out and there were more mines around the map, then the player would be forced to not only find the enemy, but more coin to fuel his war machine. That would prevent players from turtling and makes the game riskier and tougher as it goes on, as they need to branch out to find more resources. Let's consider a new game. The gameplay here is just filler, so pay it no mind. Imagine you are underground, commanding some kobolds to dig, with an enemy as before. As they clear through the dirt, they gather gold, and if you send some back to the nest, they will spend the gold to make more kobolds. We've introduced a few resources here. The dirt is a clearable field that gives the stockpilable gold. The player wants to dig through the dirt to find more gold, for more kobolds to fight the enemies when he breaks through to their tunnels. But to make more, he needs to send them back to where they can't dig to make more kobolds. Even with just the dirt clearing mechanic, if the player digs too aggressively, he will break into the enemy's tunnels before he's ready. But to get ready, he needs to keep digging. Pretty simple, but very deep mechanics. You could add a few other mechanics to change it up a little bit. Perhaps the dirt hides magical books that you need to train wizards. Maybe only one type of book works for your team, so you need to find the other ones and hide them from the other teams. Maybe you actually collect the dirt and then you can place it back down, closing tunnels behind you. Again, pretty simple, but pretty deep mechanics. So we've taken a quick look at how resources can be different and a few quick trips into imagination to think about how their implementation could change some simple video games. I'm sure I'll revisit the topic in the future. My first video was about adding cost to PlanetSide 2, so clearly I like the topic. If I have the time, I might even cobble together a demo RTS that lets you fiddle with the sliders and play with different types of resources. That would be a fun experiment. If you have any thoughts or comments, leave them where I can find them. and rate this video so I can get some feedback. Thanks for watching. I'm Kale the Quick, and don't die. Until you watch the next episode.
Only 66 years, and instead of morality, it gives us a world of pure decadence. The mechanics, however, are quite similar. Use the random number generator to